Lady B, and joining me today is my niece, Miss Fawn.
Hello!
And we are talking about cancer today, or more specifically,
Cancer awareness ribbons.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the cancer awareness ribbons, but to start with, we'd like to go over a little bit of the history of them. Now, it actually all started in the 1950s with a folk story about a reformed criminal who was coming home from jail and wanted to know if his family would welcome him or not, and asked them to tie a white ribbon around a tree if they did, so that he would know that it was okay to get off the train. Which, if that sounds familiar, in the 1970s, the folk group Tony, Orlando, and Dawn did a song called Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree that was basically about the same thing. Now, in 1979, when there were hostages in Iraq, U.S. hostages, the wife of one of those hostages used this song as inspiration and tied a yellow ribbon, was wearing it as a way of hoping, you know, for her husband to come home, and a wish for his safety. And when the press reported on it, it spread across the whole country. And this is probably what got things started. Now, its attachment to cancer came about because of a lady named Charlotte Haley, who in 1991 started handing out peach ribbons along with postcards and little cards talking about the lack of funding for breast cancer prevention, to try and bring awareness to this. And about a year later, a writer for Self magazine by the name of Alexander Penny?
Yeah, that's
Penny.
right.
I think it says Penny. Called her, found out about it, and contacted her to see if she would be okay with him following up on this and spreading it. And she said no. She was not okay with it because she felt he was too corporate. So, in the, let's see, in 1990, they started the Race for Life. It was one of these cancer organizations trying to raise money for research. And they had started out in 1990, they had started handing out pink visors. So this gave him the idea of instead using a pink ribbon. And so he did this. He made these ribbons out of the pink ribbons for breast cancer awareness. And then in the late 90s, the pinkribbon.com website went up, followed shortly afterwards by the creation of the Pink Ribbon International, which all of this, of course, was for breast cancer awareness. And this is where it started. Now, there are all kinds of colors for pretty much each individual type of cancer. And we'll have a description. We'll scroll somewhere.
Yeah. Somewhere on the screen.
Somewhere on the screen, we'll scroll with all the different colors and the different types of cancer. And wearing these ribbons has turned into a way that people who have family or friends who have cancer to wear them as a statement to bring awareness, and to also, in a subtle way, let people know that this is something they're dealing with. It brings awareness to what they're going through, and also for those who feel comfortable asking questions, and they can approach these people and ask about it and show their support. I like to think of it as our own variation off of the old Victorian traditions of having different colors you wore depending on your situation in life, or perhaps to let people know that there's a funeral in the house and people are grieving and things like that.
Shall we state our reason for deciding to make this video?
Oh, yes. So, cancer runs in our family.
Yeah.
And
Gallops in our family.
And right now, in the last couple weeks, we have found out that another member of our family has been diagnosed with cancer.
Specifically, renal cancer, which shares the same color of ribbon as leukemia.
Yes. Though they also sometimes will use green.
Yeah, sometimes they'll use green for renal, but we're going with orange.
We're going with orange, and we're making some ribbons, like this one, that can be worn. This actually has a brooch back on it that we have sewn, and we're going to show you how to make one of these yourself that you can make if you want to wear one as a way of supporting those who are going through this. So it's actually not that complicated. I expect it to take us about, what you think, half hour, 40 minutes total, even with the fancy stuff?
Yeah, around.
Around that?
Yeah.
So, shall we get started?
Yeah. So first off is cutting and heat checking the edges, but if you are doing this with children, just use a fabric glue or something to make it so that the polyester ribbon doesn't fray. This is a 7/8 width ribbon.
7/8 inch or 22 millimeters.
Yeah, or 7/8.
Yeah.
And we already have some set aside, but I'm gonna show you. But this is 12. Cut it to 12 inches for
the width.
For this width.
To make it look like this one. If you wanted to make it smaller, you could use a smaller ribbon, and that would then let you make a smaller bow for the decoration. I can hold that while you cut.
Yep. It doesn't have to be exact either. It's okay to have unique looking ribbons.
Definitely.
So got it cut. And you see how raw that edge is?
We don't want it to fray, which is what she's saying.
Yeah.
I hope you can light that, actually. It's been a while since we've used it.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Light?
Yeah.
Yep, it lit that time. Now, it's really hard to see the light in that because it is clear down there.
Yeah. It's not a big flame, but
it's getting bigger.
It's getting bigger.
Give it time, it will get bigger.
Yeah.
Alright. Which is actually a good thing for safety.
Yeah. Okay, so take this and you just pass it by like the yellow part of this and just melt the very edge. Don't go far. Just see. Be careful when handling. You might, so you don't burn yourself. Yeah, it's sealed now. It won't fray. Now you, of course, let it cool down just a little bit.
And we put out the candle as soon as we don't need it.
Yeah. And the shape that you're looking for when it comes to it, okay, how to do it, how to fold it, is you take this, you twist.
You need to do it toward them.
Okay. So twist backward. Boom.
Yeah. There we
Yeah.
go.
And there's the shape that you need. And then you can adjust it on a flatter surface.
Do it on here.
Like crease it before ironing it so that...
We have a towel we're going to use for ironing, so do it on the towel.
Yeah.
Once you get it right, we don't want to have to move it.
Yeah. It's best to crease it before the ironings to make sure it's...
That looks good.
Yeah.
Now just remember, we have to have the crossing part. We're going to be putting a pin. Hold on.
Yeah, a pin.
On the back of this where it crosses. So you actually want to make sure when you figure it out that your cross is high enough that it will be stable.
Yeah.
The crossing point.
Yeah, and it's good.
And it's good?
Yeah.
Alright. So, let me see if this is... I have a... You can't see it, but I have an iron right here. That's hot. Awesome. Okay. So we have that.
I'm holding this in place.
You're holding that in place?
Yep.
Awesome. Oh, that caught on something. There we go. And then we just iron that. And this is, ironing this is just going to make it really so much easier for the next couple steps.
Which is the sewing.
Now, technically you could glue these, but I have run into a lot of trouble when it comes to gluing stuff like this, where it just doesn't last.
Yeah.
And we want this to be something that will last for a little while.
Yeah. Because cancer does not just go away in a few months.
No,
so.
it's long term. Okay, so the next step is to sew it. And we want to secure this fold that we have just made. So I have a thread here that is the exact same color as, I mean exact, it just blends right in. And it's also 100% polyester, just like the ribbon, which I actually hate because
it frays so easily. So when working with polyester thread, you have to, if it slips off of the needle, you have to cut the end of it every time. So make sure you cut plenty of length so that if that happens, you'll still have some left.
Definitely. So here's me threading the
Even
needle.
if the little thing that you're sewing is not going to take up much thread, do plenty.
Now, because the polyester thread tends to be quite slippery, and even if it's not polyester, I still recommend doing this, but especially if you're also using a polyester thread, I am securing all my knots with said glue that we mentioned earlier.
And will also keep the knots from fraying.
It will keep the knots from fraying, and it lets us cut them a little closer without worrying about them coming undone.
Yeah.
So I'm securing a double knot in the end. Yes, it's already starting to fray.
Yeah.
It is so fraytastic.
Yeah, it's like split ends.
There we go, double knot. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to double check, make sure it's exactly how we want it. Does that look right there?
Yeah, that looks right.
And we're going to drop our first stitch right through the middle just to secure that cross piece to make sure, oh, I've got it in the wrong direction. This way, right through the middle just to secure
from the back.
From the back.
So that the knots doesn't show out on the front.
Exactly. And that's all we're doing, is just one single loop to secure it. And then I will tie it off. If you've done hand sewing before, you'll know how to do this, but if you haven't, in order to tie off your knots, all you do is take a little bit of your fabric through your needle, which creates a loop, and then before you close that loop, you pull your thread through that loop and tighten it, and it basically creates a knot. And you do that twice to secure it.
But this time through the thread loop, like through the knot itself. So that,
through the knot itself, if you can.
Yeah.
Makes it a little more secure.
Yeah.
If not, you can do it with just some more fabric.
Yeah.
And that is knotted. And now we're going to drop our first bit of glue.
And it's best to have some paper towel on hand just in case if you put a bit much.
Well, you are going to get a bit more than you need. So we do a drop, and then we blot up the excess with the paper towel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have them right here.
And then once we've blotted up the excess, we trim our thread. Like that. Now the next stitch we're going to do is also on the back. So I need to tie another double knot in the end. But what we're going to do is we're going to secure this fold that we've ironed so that it doesn't come undone. We want this to be permanent. There we go, another double knot. Now this time I'm coming in from the behind here, and I'm just going to do, and I forget the name of the stitch, but I'm going to start on this end, and I'm going to go in and just, I'm either going to just barely catch it on this side or just catch the fabric of the second side. And I'm going to run my needle see where you can see that. I'm just running my needle up it.
Like in, out, in, like a little shark.
Like a little shark.
Yeah.
There you go, like a little shark. And this just secures the fold.
Mm-hmm. So it's crisper.
And it keeps it nice and crisp. And then once again, I'm going to tie it off. That definitely, got it.
Got it. Yes.
There we go.
Did it.
Sometimes these tangle and they'll make knots, so just be careful as you pull it so that doesn't happen. Okay, so once again, we drop a little bit of glue on each of the knots on each end. And this won't show at all because it will be on the back.
Yeah. It will darken the ribbon for a little while as it dries, but once it's dried, it will be...
You won't be able to see it.
Yeah.
And then we trim.
So we did glue parts, and it's like, see, this doesn't look darker. We did glue. It doesn't really show on the front, but it will dry. Now the parts on the back where you've glued might look a bit darker, but it's the back. It won't show. It's fine.
So, and then the other side. Mm-hmm. We're just going to do the same thing on the other side.
I noticed something.
All right. So, at this point, you can either put the back on, and you'll end up with one just like this, or you can do what we wanted to do, which is make it a little fancy. So we have these beads, and we have, it's basically white, orange, and a kind of a yellowy orange color. Yeah. You know, for the ladies who want to wear these, that maybe they want something that's a little nice. Yes, extra. That's a good way to put it. All right, double knot. So what we're going to do is just put a little scattering of these beads on here in the middle, just making a little cluster and making it pretty.
You could also end up, if you want, hanging some of the beads from the ends. The ends.
You could do dangles. You could do whatever you like. Depends on you, how fancy you want it.
Yeah.
The first thing I'm going to do is actually run a stitch along it to stabilize the angle. Mm-hmm. Because I only dropped one stitch in the very middle. Now I wouldn't need to do this if I wasn't doing the beading, because putting the pin on the back does it for me. Does that look right?
Yeah.
Okay. But since I'm doing the beading, I need it stable first. So now that I've done that, I can start putting my beads on. The thing about stuff like this is you can just do whatever makes you happy, and just whatever you think looks good.
Yeah.
So that was the last. I'll show you close up in just a second. I've just finished tying it off, and once again, glue is your friend. I'm just going to smear some glue across the back of this. I tied knots occasionally as I went, just to make sure that it was a little more secure. But we're gluing.
Yep. I think it came out very pretty.
I think it did too. And then trim. All right. You want to hold it up? It's The camera's on that side.
This side?
Yeah. And the thing is, it's also got to be in the light. Yeah, you can see what we did there.
I'll cover my face so
no, you're good.
focuses.
You're good. It's good.
Yeah.
All right, I think it turned out really pretty too. So now we need to put the pin on. Now again, you can skip this step if you don't want to do the beads. Or you can add a brooch to it or anything else you want. We just did a cluster beads. But the pin you want is one of these. These are called bar pins. There you go. There you go. It's called a bar pin.
Bar pin.
Now these ones came with little plastic bits on it with a cushion on it, and they're meant for attaching to the back of little pin fancy things, like the kind that you would, the little round ones, the metal ones.
Yeah.
But we're not attaching it to a metal one. So we need to get rid of this plastic and the foam that comes with it, sticky foam, so that we can sew it on.
This part you do not let your children do it. You do it yourself.
Absolutely. Or you find ones that don't have them. Only ones I found did have them. Or you do it before you do it with your kids so that they don't do it. And I'm just taking an Exacto knife and I'm just slicing off. They're held on by these little plastic pegs in the 3 holes on the back. So there's these 2 pegs, and you just have to cut off the pegs. And then once the pegs are off, it just falls right off. There we go.
Just
right apart. So now we have just the bar pin, and it has these 3 holes. I don't know if you can see that. It has 3 holes.
Here,
hold it up where they can see.
Yep.
She's more flexible.
Yeah,
but the other way.
Got 3 holes, as you can see right there.
And we're going to use those to sew it on. Now the reason I did the beading first is because I didn't want to have to deal with going around this to put the beads on. But
here, let me show you the stitching.
Yeah, show them the stitching on the back because of the cluster beads.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
But that's what the backing of cluster beads look like.
Yep.
So, new string, which is way more than I need, but better safe than sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And through the needle. Oh, see, and that one went in beautifully.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm going to tie
a
double knot. When I put this on, we want the opening to be toward the bottom, where the pin comes in and out, rather than the top. So I'm placing it across my back here and figuring out where my very first horizontally across the back. There, we can see it right there. Ta-da. And I'm going to place it where I want it. Does that look good? Think? Yeah?
A bit more right
there?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to put this through the first hole on the side near me. Now, this is not going to immediately attach it. That's okay. I will show you how to do that in a second. This is just getting my knot in. Now I'm going to come back through in the exact same place, like that. And now I'm going to not go all the way through. I'm going to come in and I'm going to just catch this ribbon that's in the back, and I'm just going to catch about 1/8 of an inch of it sideways across the top of the bar. And these are called bar pins. If you want to go buy one from the store, they're called bar pins. And then once I've caught that 1/8 of an inch, I'm going to go back through the hole again. And these beads are just hiding these stitches so you can't see them. That's the other advantage of putting something like this on. Now, if you were going to put a brooch or something solid, of course you would need to put the bar pin on first. But for something like this, where I can come in between these beads, I wanted the beads on first. You go ahead, so you can see.
Some of the stitches do show, but it's not going to be all that noticeable from afar.
Right. for your basic one, as long as your
Yeah.
thread matches, it will be okay.
Yeah.
This is just an extra fancy thing where we want to hide the stitch. So now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to take 1/8 of an inch on the bottom of the side of the bar.
Make sure to not accidentally loop the thread over the needle of the bar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another thing we ran into. You want to keep the bar closed while you're doing this so you don't poke yourself. But also, you need to make sure that you don't accidentally loop your thread around the pin part of the bar at the same time. It's really inconvenient.
Yeah.
Fixable. Just keep an eye on it so you don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
There we go. And then back through again so that it completes the double. Basically, you're going to end up with 2 stitches going into each hole. Now, if you want it more secure, you can do it more times, but I find this to be sufficient. And then back through again in the same spot. All right. Let me just make sure I don't mess up my cluster beads. Nope, that's good. And now I'm going to carry my stitch over to my middle hole, and I'm going to do the same thing there, and then again the same on the last hole.
And as long as you're stitching the holes, just keep on making sure it's level, because it may just tilt a bit as you're sewing. So
yeah, check the level as you go. Yep, there we go. All right, so I'm now going to tie this off, using the thread that on the top on my left side, and I'll tie my double knot. And now we learned this one the hard way. You open the pin up. Before you put any glue on, you open that pin up so it is out of the way and you can get the glue actually where you want it. And I'm going to put it on both the knot at the end there, and then also all down the middle, thereby catching the first one too.
Yep.
And then of course we blot up, and make sure you don't get it on the joints on either side, which we did.
But luckily we managed to blot up what we got in there mostly, so it's still functional.
Yeah, we managed to fix it, but do keep that in mind. And then we trim, and it is done. Now, that took us, I'm sure we were right. Let's see, what does the time say on there? Yep, about 45 minutes. So we figured right. So it's probably about half an hour without the beading and 45 minutes with.
Mm-hmm.
And there we have it. You want to hold it up so they can see?
Yep.
So there it is.
Very pretty.
And it has the pin back so you can wear it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it's done. Now, I love you all, whether new or old. If you enjoyed this or just found it very informational, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Until then, whether making your own ribbons for cancer, awareness, or any other craft, just remember, don't be afraid to suit yourself and make whatever it is you do exclusively you.
See ya. Good.
It's crooked.
That's good.
It's crooked. It's good enough. Is it lighting at all?
No,
It's not lighting.
it's not.
Except
There's the shape.
You've got it the wrong way now.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it's like split ends.
It just keeps going and going.
Yep.
Oh, there's my leg again. Cramp, cramp. Hate this thread. I say that every time I use it.
It's understandable though.
A little
Extra.
nice. Yes, extra. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Like like paint.
There you go. Don't you mean us?
You're right.
I don't know what side you're supposed to pin it on.